Okay, hi everybody, and welcome to this EAZA Animal Welfare webinar for September. I hope you've all had a good summer break, and we're very excited to be back. So just some housekeeping information before we start today. You're very welcome to leave your videos on through this presentation. That's not a problem at all, but if you could please keep your microphones turned off so there's no interference, and we'd be very grateful. The format is there's going to be a 45-minute presentation from Ross, and then there's going to be 15 minutes of questions. If you've got a question, please just pop them in the chat to me, and then we'll collate those questions. We'll invite you to ask your question at the end of the presentation. If you can't ask your question for whatever reason, then I can ask it on your behalf. That's not a problem. Delighted today to be joined by April Adams from EAZA. April is going to be our tech support. So if you have any issues at all, then please get in touch with myself or April, and we will hopefully be able to sort you out. Today we are joined by Russ Hickles from ZSL London Zoo. Russ is the live food coordinator at ZSL, and he is also the live food coordinator part of the live food coordinator BIAZA Terrestrial Invertebrate working group. Russ has been working in this field for 17 years, and he's worked with all sorts of taxa, and in his own words has found his true calling in live food welfare and culturing in zoos. Lots of the work that Russ does is based on producing the 1/2 ton of crickets that are needed for London Zoo's animals every year, which is an awful lot of crickets. But he's been looking predominantly into kind of different welfare indicators, different breeding cycles and strategies to look at sort of whole life stage development with black crickets, and also some sustainable ways to cultivate cockroaches. And this is what Ross is going to be talking to us about today. So without any further ado, I'll hand over to Ross. So please sit back and enjoy the talk. And if you've got your questions, send them on for collating at the end. Thank you. Thank you, Ross.
Thank you very much. And like I say, welcome everyone. Like I said, we're just going to hide everyone there so you can see the entire screen. Let's move that over a little bit. Okay, so a little bit of a quick introduction to myself. Most of it's pretty much covered. This is me. I'm obviously the live food coordinator here at ZSL. Most of it's started some cringy photos of me when I was a little bit younger. And like I say, this is what I've worked with. Been lucky to kind of work the whole sort of range of things. I started back at ZSL in 2019, mainly working in the invertebrate house with all sorts of things. And I started the live food project here basically during sort of COVID. And since then, obviously just talking to everyone about everything bug related for the most part. But I'm still weird, as you can tell. It's actually my boss to the furthest right there. I'm not afraid to be a bit odd wherever I go. So, like I said, I started the live food project here. This is the main room that I work in the centre. Most of it is based around crickets. So we produce 1/2 ton of crickets every single year. We do supply all of the sections, all the animal departments here with crickets of all different sizes, and it costs 1/4 the price to do it. And do quite a lot of work with cockroaches as well, mainly around the kind of sustainability part to it. So let's see, let's continue working. Okay, so why am I talking today? So like I said, I'm part of the invertebrate working group, and we believe that our job is to basically provide information and resources where we can for all invertebrates, regardless of purpose. So whether they are breeding endangered species or they are live food. You wouldn't feed that live quality food as well. So obviously we get carrots in, for example, you wouldn't feed out moldy carrots. It should be the same for live food. You wouldn't buy in bad quality live food and feed it out. We need to make sure that they are considered as animals and grown as animals up until the point they are fed out. And of course, most of us, we do need them as well. We need them within our collections to make sure some of the other animals are nice and healthy. So today's key objectives, we're going to obtain an insight into new standards set by modern zoo practices regarding live food within animal collections. This has come out recently here in the UK, and a lot of zoos are kind of striving to kind of get these as quick as possible, really. And then we're going to understand some key practices keeping live food thriving and healthy. So let's start off with the standards of modern zoo practices. It's quite a big document, as you can imagine, and live food for the first time has been involved in it. So highlighting some of the important parts from my point of view looking at. So husbandry must be maintained at the same standard across the board with other taxa. So for, like I say, if you have them as education animals or as display animals or as live food, they need to be given really good standards of care, like I say, in line with everyone else. You also need to be looking at recording your live food, so mortality outside of it. So if you're ordering from an external supplier, they turn up half dead, we need to have that record. And then you need to be looking at sort of what you're doing about it. So you're going to continue buying from the supplier, you're going to look at new supplier. Why is it that they're dying? What are the reasons for? This has led us onto a completely different question and actually looking at adding live food to ZIMs, which has blown everyone's mind and scared everyone a little bit, including myself. But this is how I plan on looking at adding it. So our inquisitions, we're going to add suppliers, same suppliers that we are happy to work with. What are we ordering and the deaths on arrival, and then we can keep evaluating it to see if we are going to continue with that supplier or looking to a new supplier. All of our enclosures or tubs, exhibits, tanks, however you maintain them, we have given them all numbers. They're all dated with when they were born, what their purpose is, and so forth. We add a set weight, which is correlated into a set amount of animals, and we remove them as needed. So, for example, if our birdhouse need 2-week-old animals and we remove half the tub, we will remove half the tub and weight and record that as animals. Or if you're having deaths, and hopefully this will allow us to then go back and sort of see why they're dying and so forth. Now, when it comes to being removed, they are removed to death, regardless if they're going out to food or they've died at that point. This is the only way, like I say, we can kind of keep on top of it. It saves us having to then move it to a new exhibit and so forth. Obviously, temps and humidity of the rooms that they're kept in on a weekly or a monthly basis. And behavior-based information. So behavior is one of the things that I look into most. Obviously, if you're working with animals like 𝘓𝘪𝘓𝘓𝘓𝘓𝘓𝘓𝘓𝘓𝑐ℎ𝑒𝑡𝑟ids, the behavior is what you're watching of those animals to judge on how you're going to work with them. You can do the same with crickets, and actually, when it comes to crickets, locusts, and so forth, that behavior can actually give you a really key insight of what they need in their life, what's happening with them. Are they stressed, or are they hungry, or they want to breed, or so forth. But also, it's important, if you are going to go down the same lines, we are consider if they appear on your general census. As we know, there's quite a few people in the world that are probably very angry if they look on your death and you see over 500,000 animals have died that year. For us at the ZSL, it will probably hit news very quickly. So we have removed them from the general census, and they have our own very specific area. Like I say, because births and deaths would be absolutely monstrous. Here at the moment, we had 20,000 animals being born on a daily basis when it comes to crickets. So it's it's a monstrous task. Anyway, back to our standards of modern zoo practices. So invertebrates are commonly used as live food for animals in place. In these cases, we must make sure that, once again, they have similar standards. Husbandry, we've already gone through that part, but to show you it's been repeated in there to make sure they are part of the main collection. And we have to have an ethical review. So luckily, we do have our own ethics department here who have signed off on it. And we're actually moving in kind of into it a bit more, where we have guidelines and policies within the zoo on what is appropriate to feed and so forth. And also, if you are sourcing from the wild, you need to have, obviously, a plan and ethical review for that as well. We don't do that at the moment, but it may be something that we are looking to, especially when it comes to native species. Now, I'm not going to touch too much on this one because this upsets a lot of people, but we need to be improving the feeding invertebrates through a diet you have on site or commercially available products. Gut loading, in a personal opinion, not from ZSL, but from me, it's too broad of a subject. And like I say, it does upset people when you kind of go down your own opinion based on it. But dusting is an established method that is something that we do recommend from our site. We are looking into that quite a bit as well, but for us, it makes sense. One thing you could potentially consider is getting nutritional analysis from your suppliers. So, and it might actually guide the way you work them. So I'm not sure who your main suppliers out in Europe are, but a lot of our suppliers we approached and we said, can you provide nutritional analysis? The ones that have said no and they're not looking into it, it might, for us, we have to be improving something. So do we buy from that supplier or not? One that some of you may purchase from Aquadip have actually said they are looking into it. Now, I'm not a rep for Active, I don't get any money from them, but for us, we want to hear our suppliers going, yes, actually, this is looking into, we should be looking into it. And it may actually work that sort of local suppliers to all of you, you might actually be approaching local suppliers en masse, and actually they might start wanting to do it a bit more, because it's hard for us from a collection point to improve nutrition of animals if we don't even know where we start, and it can get very, very expensive. But also, that might be something for us all to work together and start working on different things in that kind of manner and seeing what nutrition we are at.
Ross,
anyway,
can I just very briefly interrupt you to ask you to slow down just a bit?
Oh, I do apologise. Yes,
appreciating your enthusiasm.
I get very excited. I will try my best.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so let's look at the guidelines that we released this year. So we're not going to go too much into detail, all of them. And say there's quite a lot of them. But these were the first sort of 5 that we released at the start of the year. So quite common species that you would buy from your supplier. So desert locust. Once again, not all of you will buy 𝘧𝘰𝘰𝘥, some of you might buy Locusta. Black crickets and house crickets, earthworms and mealworms. But today we're going to concentrate mainly on locusts and black crickets. And the things that we're going to concentrate on are temperatures and humidity, housing and density, diet, and some of the other considerations that might be worth considering, obviously, if you're going to go down the in-house breeding route. Now, I always start with 3Ds, which are the things you need to think about most. So density, this plays a really important part with life or death with these animals. So too many tends to equal death. Too little, you'll get poor growth. The main theme of working with crickets, I'll be honest, is they want to die for the most part. And if you're not keeping them correctly, that's what they're going to do. Then we have to look at your diet. Diet is incredibly important. Part of all animals' lives. Protein for crickets is also really death thing. So if you have older crickets, my internet connection is playing up a little bit. If you have, for example, slightly older animals and you're not providing with the right level of protein, the first thing they're going to do is going to go kill their neighbors or the ones that live with them. So making sure you hit a really good level of protein in these animals is key to success. And disease. So prevention of disease, so poor parameters tend to equal death. So you want to make sure you get your temperature and your humidity incorrect. The lack of heat is going to slow your metabolism. So when we're looking at locusts, if you're not hitting those top parameters of 35 or more, they're not going to metabolize their food as quickly, which means some of that food is going to start rotting in their guts and once again cause death. And too much heat, of course, dehydration. So for the most part, it's just finding that right level between all three of these to kind of ensure success. So let's start with your locust. So whenever I'm looking at keeping alive food in cultivation, I always go back to kind of scratch, where are they from and so forth. And one of the best ways to do that is looking at them from a pest point of view. So locusts, when they're swarming, eat lots and lots of crops. So this is from a paper of risks of desert locust and mitigation of it, mainly looking at how the farmers were recording basically where they're from. So you can see the solitary range there is quite large, but when they're swarming, they require more food and they can be found further afield. Now, as it gets hotter, these animals are going further and further and further, and we can even find them occasionally, very, very occasionally, here in the UK in really hot years. So your target temperatures, what do you need to be hitting for your locusts to metabolize their food correctly? So day and night range, we want to make sure we're given that big range that allow them to kind of hit those top areas and also then go to a kind of different state as well. So 25 to 35 is ideal for them, but providing them for even an hour a day at 35 to 40 degrees will make sure they are metabolizing all that food and digesting it and obviously then growing. Humidity between 30 and 70%. Some people argue a lot lower, but it definitely depends on the age of your animal. So we're not looking at one specific age. If we look at all of them, this is the range that we want to go with. And if you keep them sort of 60%, 70% when they're younger, they react differently. So sometimes they want to walk a bit more, sometimes they want to jump a bit more. So that's something to play around with. So we suggest that you kind of give a broad range. And like I say, we want to metabolize their food correctly, which equals healthier animals, which means better quality food for the other animals eating your locust. And of course, more importantly, it's going to reduce your death rate. If you're giving them the parameters they would receive in the wild, you are going to slow that death rate down. Another part, can't really see it behind the bit, but high ventilation. So if you lack that ventilation within your locust exhibit, what you're going to do is, bear in mind, it's a hot environment, you are going to create mold spores. Those mold spores can cause respiratory issues within your locust. So make sure you've got good ventilation. And also this is for you as well. You want to make sure if you're working with these animals, good ventilation is going to be healthy for you. So the setup. So when I first saw this setup, I thought it was really basic. They're not really offering lots of things, but actually it is offering everything they kind of need. So what you have here is low density numbers. You've got split sizes. They've got food and they've got moisture as well through the food in this case, and also a hot spot as well. So when I looked at it, I thought, maybe we could do more. Maybe we should be offering them more climbing places and so forth. So this was my first attempt after reading it. I was like, right, let's give them the same size enclosure. Let's give them lots of cardboard and let's give them browse. Browse I really like. But I don't know if you can see, all they want to do right at the top there is sit in the sunlight. Right over here, they're in this area. They don't really care about all this cardboard. Yes, it provides them a place to molt, but actually this is making more work for myself. So doesn't have to have lots of branches and stuff to them to succeed. So finding that balance between the two of them is kind of where I kind of try and sit. So like I say, density, really important. Overloading them, they're going to be communicating through pheromones with each other, and it's going to cause all sorts of stress levels, potential color changes as well. So recommendation for us is 5th instar winged adult in a really large sort of mesh is about 100 locusts. And if you've got the smaller sizes, about 50 locusts. They don't really like to be near each other too much. But also if you have really big densities, what's going to happen is when they try and molt, there's not enough places for them to molt. They're going to be knocking each other off and obviously falling to the ground and potentially dying. When it comes to instars, obviously this is the kind of range for these guys. So up to 5 instars with some smaller size, and then you get your adult pair or your adult individuals, and they can be, when it's the right sort of parameters, can be distinct between 2 different color variations as well. If you have them at a lower temperature or less density, lots of other things can kind of happen, and there can be different colorations, different sizes, and so forth. They will fight over resources, but it's important then that you obviously give them lots of different resources. So lots of light, lots of heat, and also, of course, lots of food. This will actually work with their kind of communication as well. And like I say, we're looking at the behavior of these animals and how they work with each other. And sort of applying all these different methods can kind of give you the best outcome, both from a welfare point of view, but also from a production point of view. Separating sizes, I've already mentioned it. Recommend it. The bigger ones and the little ones, yes, you can house them together. But when it goes to actually collecting the live food and you're chasing around the smaller ones, you're probably disturbing the bigger ones, and the other way around as well. So it's going to make your life easier. It's going to be less stress for these animals. Okay, diets. So diets are, for me, one of the kind of the big things, one of the fascinating things when it comes to working with these animals. So these guys can be aggressive feeders, and a lot of people will go to your vegetables because it's stuff that you can order in. It can be fairly low cost. And it can be very, very broad. So dark greens, for me, they make up about 50% of the diet. Spring greens and cabbages, one of the main things we go to, but we also use things like cow in small amounts, and also broccoli as well. But one of the things that I spent a lot of time looking into over the last couple of years is browse. So here's just a few examples of what browse that you can offer to them, stuff they regularly consume. Obviously, depending on where you're getting your browse from, make sure it hasn't been sprayed with any pesticides. Ideally, if you can grow it on site, great. If you've got a horticulture team, work quite close to that horticulture team, and you'll be able to find out what they've got growing, and potentially encourage a few more different species to be grown on site. And like I say, I go for a 50-50 split when it comes to browse and vegetables. This way, it's different for them every day. It's also convenient for me in different ways as well. But you need to consider who's going to eat the locust. So buddleia is one that I like to feed out. Buddleia is not particularly great for a lot of other animals. We don't know how it is processed with these animals. We haven't done any testing with it. If you have done some testing with it, please reach out. It'd be great to know. But we need to make sure that we're not passing on anything, any toxins to a secondary consumer. And then fruit, small amounts. This is debated quite a lot between people. I like to kind of work on the basis that offering a little bit of everything is good, but very, very small amounts of fruit from my point of view. And record as much as you can. So here is an example of 3 different species of browse. So we have Olernia, Hoheria, and rosemary. These are what we fed out to a group of locusts, and this is the aftermath of it. Now I can show you these pictures and you might go, wow, they're eating so quickly, but it's not really the full picture. So I want to give you an example how I record things to make sure that we are understanding the full picture and not just they've eaten all of it, or maybe the leaves have fallen off. So here's an example. Here is a piece of buddleia, and this is a feed record that I would have done for it. So this plant species, buddleia, who is the consumer species? Like I say, we feed browse out to lots of different animals, especially within the insect room. This was fed to locusts. The recording, there's 100% leaf consumption. There's not any leaves left on that piece of buddleia. They've actually stripped the bark and the stem completely, so it just leaves the white under part of it. You can't really see, but the time under there, I think, is see if I can move this. Okay. The time frame is 8 hours. So this is important. So if, for example, if I show you a before and after photo, and you go, oh, that's amazing, but it may have been in there for 2 or 3 days. It doesn't really give you the full picture. So having an understanding of the time frame on how quick they've eaten it, density as well. There's a difference between 1,000 locusts and 100 locusts. So like I say, 100 locusts were in this enclosure. In 8 hours time, they stripped all the leaves and the bark. and what size they were. So, and also they're freshly molted. So these are fifth staff, so pretty big locusts. They are about to go through a big change in their life where they turn into mature winged adults, and they've just literally turned to the fifth instar. They are at the hungriest they are going to be at this stage. So they have eaten it quite quickly. So just an idea roughly what you can record when you are recording what plant species are eating. So another other consideration, if you are looking to breed them on site for yourself, there's lots of different designs that you can make. Here is a trial one that we put together. So this one has lots of ventilation at the top and actually has a false floor in it. So it allows air vents to come from the bottom and push air up and down. It has a feeding hatch and a sliding door. As you can see, the locusts are at the top. So the bottom part was pointless. So we need to make a few adjustments to that. So what we have here is the ventilated and the heated area at the top. We've got some crates in there for climbing and molting. You can see the ones on there are actually hanging upside down, ready to molt. We have a feeding hatch, which means that when we open the door, they're not all going to rush out and jump on us. And a frass freefall area. So it makes it easy to clean. So we're not opening the door and stressing them out every day. We can clean up whatever they're pooping on the bottom and wipe it away. It makes our life easier, makes their life easier as well. Now, remember, growth depends on heat, food resources. So make your life easy and their life easy. If you want to grow them quick, make sure you give them all those boundaries, but also cleaning, make your life as easy as possible. Sorry, and review and record it. So if you're going to do multiple trials, try and see if you can get some consistency. How does it work? So this enclosure produces animals that look like this. And these are two different separate occasions. So we know that the way we grew in that part, we can repeat that time and time and time again, and we know exactly what we're going to get at the end of it. And here's a couple of examples that I just found on the internet. So Auckland Zoo, this is where I got our original design from. Big locust breeding facility here. Minimalistic approach, but it works, and it works really well. And then one I found the other day, I think this was from Smart Technologies at BIAZA Zoo. Some of you may know a bit, perhaps more than me, but lots of different trials. And I think this was an automated system that cleaned and so forth. So there's lots of different ways that you can do it, playing around with it. But for the most part, watch the behavior of animals and see what's getting to the end, see what's dying, and then record it. And like I say, just keep working on that process and see basically where you go from it. So let's move to crickets. So like I said, this is kind of my main area. Black crickets is what I work with, what we have the most of. Now, like I say, once again, when we're looking at the process, go back to the start. So where are they a pest? What information can I find? So this species, from what I've gathered, is banned in America because they do spread rapidly. As you can see, they're pretty much found throughout most of the countries around the world. This is from a paper that was predicting the global distribution. We do find them here in the UK, not so much in the winter, obviously, but in the summer they have been found. But we do have a native species that we need to make sure we're protecting and keep an eye on. So, let's have a little look at them in general. Oh, there we go. So target temperature, it can differ between the species. Most of them have kind of a similar boundaries, but for black crickets, we have a nighttime of 21 up to about 30 degrees. The more consistent you keep that temperature, the more consistent the growth is, and also the temperature is going to depend on the density as well. So if you have a really busy container and they're all doing really well, and you drop that temperature, you're probably going to get a higher die-off. So it might be worth just considering what density you keep them at. Sorry. And house crickets. Oh, sorry. Here we go. Talking too much as per normal. House cricket, so a little bit of a shorter range, 25 to 28. The banded cricket, house cricket, they breed really well in pretty much any condition, and you can keep them at parameters a lot different to this. But when it comes to actually kind of consistent housing of them, this is what we would recommend: 25 to 28 degrees. And 40 to 60% humidity is a really important part as well. So too low, you won't get good molts. Too high, it's actually kind of the opposite. They molt too much, and you don't get a good quality cricket from it. Of course, they can survive higher percentages and lower percentages, but we're looking at consistency and good welfare points through from. Hotspots, 34 degrees for black crickets. Like I say, it's quite a high end for them, but you will get a really good metabolization when it comes to eating their food. And house crickets, once again, about 30 degrees. Day and night, like I say, I always mention this a little bit. The day and night range depends on the diet and the density of these animals. So if you're opting for a low protein diet and a sort of lower temperature range, then you will probably have to have a lower density. If you have a high density of that, all you're going to find out is they're going to be eating each other because they want more protein. If you have a high temperature and consistent high temperatures, a higher increase in protein. Otherwise, once again, they're going to be killing each other. So it kind of goes back to that same point of make sure you give them a really varied diet, but make sure you are trying to find some form of protein that they can eat. They will fight quite a lot over heating resources, especially around that 4th instar. For me, that's about 21, 22 days old. Their mindset changes from a kind of herbivorous state to wanting lots of grains and grasses and browse and stuff to wanting protein. I say protein a lot of crickets, and that's just purely because over the last 5 years working with them, I cannot give them enough for the most point. Okay. So I want to give you a bit of a comparison. I talk a lot and I say a lot of things, but sometimes it's easier for me just to show you a video of really what I mean. So on the left, what we have is a box of slightly younger crickets. This was one of the old ways we used to do it, with a kind of a heat lamp in just the room. What they've got is access to vegetables, they've got a chick crumb pellet, and they've got a high protein pellet. And what you can see in several boxes in this video is a lot of different kind of behaviors going on. So most of them are fairly calm the way they're feeding around food. They're not frantic. They are just kind of monitoring around and eating the bits that they want. This is because at the stage of life they are, their mindset isn't really about high protein diets. They just want to kind of grow at their own pace. Now, when they get older and you offer them a kind of restricted diet around protein, what you get is a high aggression kind of behavior. So you can kind of make it out in this one. A lot more frantic around that container. You can see they are trying to drag away those bigger chunks of food, and for the most part being quite aggressive around each other. They want that food. There is a cricket in the background that did murder another one in that video as well. So providing a lot of feeding place for them as opposed to a singular one, what you'll achieve is a kind of calmer nature, and once again, a lot more resources. So housing densities, I apologize, I'm still talking too quick. My brain is working faster than my body. So one of the ways you can house them, we tried different ways. This is the original way we tried. These are really useful boxes. They're the 60-litre boxes, I think, at the time, or 84-litre boxes. We've gone for a horizontal placed egg crate. And when it came to this, the density was always the issue. We'd put lots of crickets in, they would consume a lot of crickets. We'd lower them out, and they were growing too slowly. So it was trying to find that balance. And actually, with the horizontal kind of egg crate, we had a higher death rate as well because they weren't able to molt properly, and the frass was building up within the egg crate. This is the way we kind of work them now. So it's vertical egg crate so that all the feces and everything can drop to the bottom. We can spread out the food all across the top in different ways. And once again, we have a larger density and we get really consistent amounts for every box. So to give you an idea, housing large storage boxes of horizontal and vertical space. So depending on once again, the densities and the size of the box you're going at makes a big difference. The horizontal parts on the vertical egg crate, you can see they're walking all over the top and utilizing as much space as possible. When it comes to your density, your age or your instar, I would not recommend mixing instars or sizes because they're just going to kill the little ones. And that happens quite a lot. If we get a big cricket that makes its way into a smaller box, all it wants to do is kill the animals, or kill the other animals in there. Disturbance is a really key thing. So these boxes that we set up, we grow them in those boxes for 32 to 38 days, but we don't clean them. We take the food out and we put new food on top. We don't go to the bottom and disturb everything. One, if there is mold or something down there, it's going to disturb them and it's going to cause lots of breathing issues. But also, when we are going through those boxes, the more we disturb, the more chance we have of knocking animals that are molting, and we can affect the success rate of those boxes. We get a really high number of animals that will go through, the less we disturb them, if that makes sense. But there are things that we could probably look at, and maybe you could look at. So cleaning mesh floors for larger crickets. Obviously, if you put hatchlings in a mesh floor, they're going to fall through the mesh. But if you have a larger group of animals, creating a suspended floor within there, or a false floor, a bit like we did with the Locust, then you actually might find that it's easier to clean, and you can keep on top of it. Ventilation, open top is the best. If you use the side, once again, if you put little holes in it, the hatchlings are going to crawl out and be all over your room. Trust me, we've done that. We've gone through that process quite a lot. But if you are doing open top, one thing to think about is rodents. So I don't use open tops anymore. You can see actually on the other side of that photo, we do have mesh lids. If you have problems with pests in your zoo, you're likely going to have problems with rodents, especially when it comes to finding really high protein, really high source crickets, or even just the vegetables in that box. But consider, like I say, what instar is being housed, regardless of what you do. Think about it as you are planning it. Now, what we also do is we move our animals from the 145 litre boxes if we want to breed from them. So we actually move them in a 1,000 litre container. We will put 3 boxes, mix them up. And then what you want to do is you want to give them a really big place to breed. This will allow all the females to spread out evenly and find their own place. Otherwise, what you're going to find is if you have a condensed area, not only are they going to eat each other's eggs, but they're going to eat each other and disturb each other. So giving them a really big area to lay their eggs is important. And like I said, this is just the room. This is the room we have, the system we have. So we've got the growing containers on the sides there, and at the end is that big 1,000 litre container. So it's all streamlined to make your life easier. So this corridor itself will have about 3,000 crickets per one of those boxes at different sizes. As they get older, there's a lot less in there depending on how we're working it. But to give you an idea, we have close to 200,000 crickets at any one point in our room. Now, like I said, the actual sort of space you provide them can actually be understood a little bit better when you're watching their behaviour. So if you have a lot less cardboard and really high density, the behaviour of these animals is going to be completely different if you have a lot of cardboard, but also a lot of density, if that makes sense. So once again, I'm going to show you a few videos. So this one is animals that are in quite a small space. There's only 4 bits of cardboard. We'll try and play that again and see how frantic they are running around. There's not really settled. You also have mixed sizes in that box as well. I look at that as quite a stressed behavior because no one can kind of sit in their own mindset. If we were to keep them in there for the full life cycle, we would probably get about 10% survive. It's quite a low amount. Whereas if you give them a lot of different places to go, and bear in mind this box, they don't have lots of food at the moment because this is in the morning, so they've got enough food that's lasted them overnight. A lot of different behavior, a lot calmer, a lot slower. It's not a temperature difference. They both have the same temperature zones. You can still hear them. Actually, the box next door is making noise, not this box. But as you can sort of see, the behavior is completely different. And if we play them side by side, you can see there's quite a big difference when it comes to behavior. So where I'm going with this is it's just something to think about is what you provide them will dictate how they grow and the percentages of what you get survive. Like I said, to give you an idea, 150 litre container, 2,000 pre-winged animals or 1,000 winged animals, and a 60 litre container, which is the one on the left there, 500 hatchlings or 100 to 200 pre-winged animals. That is going to be your best bet. Once again, it depends on what furnishings you're offering and what diet you're offering. Just something to consider when you're doing all of these things. Now, once again, diet, right? Fantastic part of life food, one of the fascinating areas. It can control all sorts of things and dictate what sort of variables you get and the outcome at the end. So it all depends as well on your collection and what you can get. Do you do season varieties of food? Do you buy one set thing? So for us, I use beetroot, potato, swede, and carrot. That is the cheapest thing for me to buy, but it's also one of the things that I ate the most of. We tried a lot of things of everything. And for example, when we offered them celeriac, they actually just chose to kill each other. So, you know, it's about watching their behavior and seeing the outcome of what happens with them. Give them spring greens, not too much though. So we don't really give them lots of things like spring greens and broccoli, purely because the calcium in those items can be quite high and it can actually affect the breeding of the crickets. So we try and give them bits, but not a lot. But like I said, it depends on what you can get. I don't tend to feed out too much fruit. A lot of fruit is accepted, but it does give them really loose feces. Loose feces causes a whole nother load of issues, which I don't have too much time to kind of go into. But generally, the thing that I think that is what is going to give you the big success rate is finding a protein pellet that you can offer to them. The easiest way, or the one I suggest to everyone, is have a little look around on site, what pellets you order in, what sort of protein that they have in them. If you can aim for 20 to 40%, try it out with them, see what they do. Things like dog biscuit are good, but dog biscuit's really high in fat. So it depends on what you want to get from your crickets. We have a really good success rate, but we also have quite a lot of fat in our crickets. So we are looking at reducing that fat content without removing what the crickets themselves want, if that makes sense. And of course, offering them browse as well is regularly accepted. So this box here on that day had hazel, a protein pellet, and carrot. As you can see, they're kind of split everywhere. They're choosing, I guess, if you want to go with what they want to eat. And if you offer it to them at a later stage, sometimes what the males will do is find a high spot to call to the females. So it is giving another layer to their enclosure, to their space and the way they're working. They didn't eat that whole moke, but he did sit on there and call for a very long time. Hope I'm not talking too fast. I do apologise. So welfare indicators, like I say, this is what I spend quite a bit of my time looking into, and you can kind of apply this nature to a whole group or an individual. So here we have a male and a female cricket grown on site. When we have a look at these, we know what species they are. They're two-spot crickets that we've bred. We can see there's a male and a female difference. So the female is at the bottom with the ovipositor here, and the male does not have an ovipositor at the back. But what are we actually looking at? So antenna, we want to make sure that they are long and intact. And I'm sure you can agree that both of those have very long and intact antenna. We want to make sure their wings and their abdomen are fully formed, no defects. The defects could mean lack of humidity or too much humidity, for example, and they never dried properly. Or it could mean the lack of food in the enclosure and they've actually bitten each other. We want to make sure the ovipositor on the female is long and complete. Sometimes you find that it's half chewed off. Doesn't mean they can't lay from it, but it's not preferred. It is a sign of distress somewhere within that box. Something has happened in that life to affect that. Legs and their feet. As simple as you want to make sure they have all their legs and all their feet. And if you are keeping them in a large group, you want to make sure that they're all the same. They're all exactly the same. They all have the same size. They all have long antenna. And you can tell the difference between when you can look at males and females and what you're looking at. So our females here, we look for really heavy animals before they've laid their eggs or before they've mated. So this female was about 3 grams in weight, and she weighed a little bit more when she was sort of gravid and had lots of eggs in her. When it comes to the males, I look at the head. So we want to make sure there's a really large head. That's what they like to fight with. And depending on the group of females, they actually kind of preference the males with the really big heads. The last thing is coloration. So you want to make sure they are consistently colored the same as each other. This shows kind of a unity of health and growth throughout the container. You can do the same with Locust, long antenna, good long legs, all their legs, wings are intact and dried properly, not broken down or anything. And once again, we push this across to anything we breed. So same with our earthworms. You can actually see there's a discolored one there. So it shows a bit of proportion, something wrong within that growing period. And moray worms as well. Sometimes you get the segments are just a bit too close, which means they haven't molted properly, and so forth. So we want to make sure that it's working. You can then look at the size, so consistent size throughout the box. You want to make sure they're active and doing what their species does. Are they actually behaving what they're meant to do? Making sure they're clean around their face and their body. So you don't want them dusty. You don't want them to have anything that's kind of building up around their sort of mandibles or anything. And like I said, even segments for the moray worms. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of stuff we've had in our collection and basically tell you what's happened with this one. So this one has had a molting issue and also a diet issue. So it's not molted properly here. This wing never fully formed, never dried out properly. And then it's also been consumed at the bottom here. It is a mated female, and she does have a long ovipositor, but there is something wrong in that box. So she hasn't laid her eggs yet. Her body shouldn't be breaking down. If she'd laid her eggs, we would expect her body to start breaking down. But actually, there is an issue somewhere, probably means that she has not been fed enough food, and also then the humidity is too dry. And then you have a male at the other end here. Once again, this is mainly chewed, so and you can sort of see it's just not formed properly. So this is a sign mainly of lack of food in the enclosure, lack of protein. This is This animal has not mated yet either. These have only just turned into adults. So you can look at behaviours and look at the issues that they've had, and it can kind of tell you everything you need to know about them. And another key factor is noise. So this is the cricket box. This is literally yesterday, reading 8-9 decibels in that box. So just thinking about your health, if you're working in a big area, wear ear defenders or headphones because it is quite a powerful noise after a long period of time. And to give you a little bit of an idea, like I say, this room, it does vary. I appreciate this is inside their box, but it reads similar in the room as well, especially when you've got multiple containers. Simple answers, just protect yourself and look after your own hearing. Once again, another area, we're almost finished, don't worry. Another area is pest diseases, mites and abnormalities. So I have had issues with all of these, and I'm not afraid to kind of show you some of the things that we've had. So here is a box. As you can see from afar, these small crickets are all, once again, they're all gathered around the food. There's not as many spread out. So this would be the first thing to kind of look at, is going, they're all demanding a lot of food. And at this size, it's not that normal. So the bodies are requiring a lot more energy. When you have a closer look, what you can see is completely infected with mites. This box was after this photo taken from euthanasia, as they would not survive to adulthood. They would be consumed during the next molt. They're already being consumed at this point. So it's important that when you are working with animals, you are looking at every aspect. This can very quickly become a real big issue if you are breeding on site. If you're not able to maintain it, you're just going to have more and more problems. So breeding on site isn't for everyone if you don't have the time to put into it. Also, if you're buying from your suppliers and you get something like this, I would look at either one, letting your supplier know, or looking for another supplier. This is not good practice. This can be caused by just dirty conditions or all sorts of different things. This problem took, in our room, about 4 weeks to fix. So it does take a little bit of time, but it is something to look out for. And of course, pests, they can make your life really, really hard. So you don't want flies in your room, because the flies, they're going to lay their eggs in your cricket egg trays, and they're going to consume your cricket eggs, and you're just going to breed more and more flies. Mice and rodents not only like the vegetables that you feed, they love to eat the crickets. Forage flies can be a bit of an issue, not as much as some of the others. And of course, if you are having Purpunita or American roaches in the room, they will also eat your crickets. They will eat the crickets' food, and they will spread rapidly. So just something to consider if you are going to look at breeding them on site. Try and make it as pest-proof as possible. Really important for that one. Okay, so that's pretty much all the live food stuff. What I wanted to do is introduce you a little bit to the kind of what BIAZA working group are doing. I'll start off by introducing the chair. This is Tyrone. Tyrone's been the chair for, I think, almost 2 years now. Generally a really great human being. If you do have any questions about the working group or stuff that we're doing, he is happy for you to contact him. He will always give you the time of day. And the same for Jack as well, who's the vice chair. Both incredibly amazing people that will, like I say, give you the time of day, ask any questions, and if they don't know, they will direct you in the right direction. I want to show you little dung beetles as well. Now, dung beetles are incredible. We'll say they are the logo for our working group, and it's something we've been working on quite a bit. But to give you an idea a little bit else what we're working on, so the working group are working quite closely with Natural England and local and national entomology societies. We released Project Dung this year, so the idea is looking at if anyone is working with who stock, having a look in the feces and seeing if you get any dung beetles and recording it and reporting it. We want to make sure that they're kind of kept up. You can't really see the top of that one, but tadpole shrimp we're doing quite a bit of work with. We're on the process of releasing a really big document on butterfly management guidelines, which should be quite an exciting read if you like your butterflies. And also doing quite a lot of work with glutinous now as well. Now, with that, I'm not really doing too much of all these things to say I spend my time with the live food, but there are lots of fantastic people in the working group that are doing these things. So if you are interested in any of that, please feel free to reach out to Jack and Ty, and also they can direct you to who's been managing those projects. Like I said, we are obsessed with native invertebrates, and myself included. This is pretty much what I do on my day off, is go and look for native invertebrates. My hobby is slugs, because I'm clearly a little bit weird. But yeah, as a little bit of a thank you to everyone kind of involved in this presentation and getting this organised. But most importantly, to all of you guys as well, when you do get the chance to attend these webinars, it shows a demand for them, and it allows people to then start doing more and more, talking about things that they really enjoy. Thank you very much. I'll stop talking now.
Thank you so much, Ross. That's a really great presentation. Lots to think about. We've got a few questions coming in. So I'll just start, and then if anybody else has got any more questions, then please feel free to chip in as well. So here we go. So death in these enclosures is unavoidable during this process. How do you deal with the smell coming out from those dead bodies if you don't disturb them for the whole time until they're ready to be fed?
Okay, so for us, death, if you're getting a lot of death, there may mean there's something wrong during the process. So for me, I will add about 10 grams of hatchlings to one of our box, and I expect to get about 1,000 animals at the end. 99% of the time, I will get 1,000 animals at the end. If you're watching their growth and you start getting used to how busy it is, and if you get the smell of it is, that is telling you there's something wrong. At that point, I would empty the box and start again. Those animals will then be sent off for food, or I'll have a little look or reduce the colony size within that box. That would be the first indicator that there is something wrong during the process. So I would take it back to scratch and have a look at bit by bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, great. Thank you. So let's see. Nikki, do you want to come on and ask your question, Nikki Phillips?
Hi, Ross. Thanks so much for such an informative talk. That was really interesting. We're currently buying in our crickets at the moment, but we're hoping to start breeding soon. So everything you said was just really helpful. We'd also like to start breeding dubia roaches. So I was just wondering if you had any resources that we could potentially look at with all this sort of similar information, but for roaches instead.
Yeah. So we do breed our own roaches here. I'll probably share the document that I started looking at too, which is basically from a wholesaler. And they give you, it's a really detailed guide into breeding dubias. And then what I've done from that is moved into a way that I look at kind of welfare based on it, because most of the stuff that we start with is based on wholesalers and how they mass produce, right? And I'll be honest, my first thing is to go to Google and type in how to breed this. And it sounds really silly, but that's the baseline for all of it. But I could definitely probably share a link to one of the companies that we've looked into. But what I find with dubias is, especially, well, cockroaches in general, incredibly social animals, right? So cockroaches, like dubias, don't like a lot of disturbance, and they don't like a lot of space as well. So a quick run through of what we do is I have a 45-litre box, and that will have maybe 100 animals in it, all different sizes, and they're maintained and fed in that manner for about 3 months before we reduce the number. But I could probably share you a link to where I kind of source my information from.
No, that's perfect. No, that'd be great for the link. Thank you. And that's useful information. We've got quite a small tub at the moment, but we're sort of checking on them every day. So that's obviously not the ideal to do with them.
Yeah. I mean, it's disturbance that can be kind of thing, but also the more tubs you have, the more, it sounds terrible, the more tubs you have, the more success you get. Because you stop relying on that one tub and you're just going, right, take the food out, put new food in. With dubias, humidity is a big part of them, and also day and night. They're mostly like the dark, but without having a proper day and night cycle, they actually slow down their breeding quite a bit.
All right, okay. Thanks so much.
All right.
Sorry, just to say, Ellen, would you be able to share the resource to Ellen, and then it could be shared to everyone on the Facebook group?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yep, we can share that on. Thank you. Thanks, Ross. So we'll go with Sian Thompson. Do you want to pop on and ask your question?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Great, we've got you. Yep.
Yeah. So I just had two questions actually, because we are looking to start breeding our own crickets and locusts. Would a terrarium with only mesh at the top be enough ventilation for locusts?
It's not, weirdly, it's not that it wouldn't be. So you can grow them in something like that. What you need to be looking at is your density. So you could say you have a terrarium, it's only got mesh at the top. Does it have a ventilation at the front? Maybe, so you've got that good circulation round. But if you put 100 locusts in, something slightly small, it's going to really affect the ventilation of that, because they're going to be producing a lot more waste. So there's a lot more stagnant air. I mean, you can keep, it sounds terrible, you can keep 5 locusts in a terrarium and they'd thrive, as long as they've got all those resources that they need. I personally wouldn't keep locusts in glass tanks for your own health, but also you're not going to get the right levels of growth and the production that you want from them. Likewise, people do it in sort of big plastic tubs with well-ventilated lids. Same process. I would, yeah. So the kind of short answer is it's not perfect, but you could do it. It just depends on the density.
Yeah, of course. But so like a plastic box with only ventilation at top would be better, or do you need ventilation all around?
The more ventilation, the better, but you can do it with just ventilation at the top. So
Okay,
like I say, if for example, if you have a similar box to what we have with our crickets, but you half filled it with egg crate, and you had a mesh top, it would work. But locusts produce a lot of frass. They produce a lot of waste. So your density would then have to be a lot lower.
Okay. Also, next question was the high protein food. Was that only for crickets, or was that also for locusts?
So locusts, they haven't eaten it. I've tried lots of different things for locusts. It once again depends on the species. So you're doing the 𝘬𝘬𝘭𝘵𝘰𝘥, which is the one we get, or the Locusta migratory ones. 2 very, very different diet. Locusts like dried grass or fresh grass, depending on where you are. And the desert locust or 𝘬𝘬𝘭𝘵𝘰𝘥, they really like spring greens and browse. I have tried to get them on things like agrobs, which have been blended down, dried grass, don't want it. The protein pellet we offer them, don't want it. They're just a completely different animal. So yeah, my suggestion would be to look at browse as a big part of the diet, and stuff like spring greens.
Okay, thank you so much, and thank you for a good talk as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Russ. So got another one. David Aitken, do you want to ask your question? Okay, haven't got a headset, that's fine. What are your thoughts on the H2O balls from Habitat for hydration?
Personally, if you don't have the time to kind of service them every single day, they're not the end of the world. It depends. If you're going to breed them, that's a lot you'd need to buy. It starts getting very, very expensive. If you're looking at buying in locusts or crickets and you don't have lots of staff members, you've got a small team, not the end of the world. I haven't used that specific product, but I don't use those kind of things just in general, just because I'd have to buy lots of them. We would use, I'll probably use maybe 10 litres of water a day in the cricket room. I spray them 3 times a day. That's more than enough for me. So I would say it's cheaper to get a spray bottle, but that's definitely on your collection, on what you prefer to use. But yeah, I've never used that specific product. I just think for us, it would cost a lot of money.
Great, thanks, Russ. Another question here. Do you use organic or not treated vegetables and browse, or do you wash/peel them?
So this is for us, it's been debated quite a lot. We know our supplier. So luckily, up in London, we get it from quite a fancy market. I'll be honest, it sounds terrible, but we trust our supplier. We know where they're getting stuff from. I don't do any of it. I literally get the carrots in. I'll cut them up as they are and put them in as they are. Our insect house, they wash them, they strip them. For me, I have 80 kilos of veg a week to use. It would take more of my time stripping them. And don't get me wrong, if I try, for example, parsnip, I don't use parsnip. And we had an issue with parsnip a few years ago. We just cut them up, put them in, all the crickets died. So I stay away from that, and I work with the products that I know that are going to work. That one be sort of bring up with your supplier, maybe go and visit them, ask them what they use if you can. or watch the crickets, watch the locusts, watch their behaviour. If you put them in and there's an issue, either strip them, see if there's another issue, or don't use that. That's generally my suggestion. But because of the amount that I use, I don't do any of it. I just cut them as they are.
Great, thank you. We've got another one here from Jamie. Johnny, do you want to ask? Ah, I think they dropped out. So I can ask the question. What kind of heating light is best suited for maintenance of the temperatures for the locusts?
So at the moment we have underfloor heating, which is not the best. You think about if animals are hot, they go down, they go cold, they go up, right? We are in the current process of investing into a new area, and the simplest form is a nice AC unit that can hit a high temperature. Most of the AC units, depending on where you get them from, will top out about 30 degrees. So we are then adding either panel heaters at the top or a wet system into the room, like radiators. Some people will add light bulbs per box, which is a good thing. That locusts do like it. If you're having 40 lights, that's 40 sets of costs. Once again, gets very, very expensive. If you're looking into breeding them and you go back to kind of the people that make decisions, management, or if you are making decisions, the average lamp here in London for us, for example, a heat lamp will cost us £1.80 a day to run. And if you have 40 of those, it gets very expensive. So a suggestion would be something that, like an AC unit, because that also dries the air out, keeps humidity nice and low for you. But you're potentially looking at lamps or a wet system on top of that.
Great, thank you. So I think we've just got time for one more, but if we haven't got round to your question, then please do reach out to Ross. So you mentioned, Ross, monitoring behaviour sort of throughout the talk. How often do you recommend that's done, and what sort of data do you recommend capturing when you're doing those observations?
So routine, it sounds really strange, but I mean, every day I feed the crickets. So it's just a snippet per box of everything. I mean, I'm a bit obsessive. So I've, the 50 odd boxes, I've weirdly recognize every group. And, if you're there every single day, I mean, we spend more time with the animals that we work with than our families, right? So you get used to seeing the little differences. When it comes to officially recording it, I will record behavior that I find strange. So if a box is dying and I don't know why, or I've seen a pest issue or a mite issue, or a box is damaged and that's affecting their behavior, that's how I would kind of have the routine to it. We also have a diary in our room, so if keepers are in there, I'm away, or so if they might write things down, little things like that. Does that answer the question? Does that make it?
Yes, I think so. Yes, thank you so much. Okay, so yeah, we'll wrap up now because I'm conscious of your time. Thank you so much, Ross, for a really great presentation. There's been lots of really great comments in the chat just saying how much people have enjoyed the talk, so I hope you get a chance to see those. And thank you everybody for joining us today. This webinar will make its way onto the EAZA YouTube channel, where the other webinars are as well. So if anybody wants, you can kind of go back to it, and you can also look at the others there. And then we'll be hopefully advertising relatively soon the next webinars for the rest of this year. But thank you very much, everybody.